Hello everyone, I am Michael Ruger. I am the managing partner of Greenbush Financial Group. The topic we're going to be talking about today is the establishment of an emergency fund. Now, when we're doing financial plans for clients, we always want to have an adequate amount of savings that when life's many surprises are dealt to you and those surprises shockingly cost money, that it doesn't disrupt your overall financial plan. But the questions that come about from clients is, how much should I have an emergency fund? Where should I be holding my emergency fund? Does the emergency fund amount differ whether I'm retired, still working? When do I have too much cash in an emergency account? And also a strategy for people that are living paycheck to paycheck saying, I would love to have an emergency fund, but how do I get there? We're going to be talking about some strategies for achieving that emergency funding. The most common question we receive is, what's the amount I should have set aside in my emergency fund? And we typically advise somewhere between 4 to 6 months worth of your living expenses. You have to know what your monthly expenses are first off. So do a quick budget, realize what you're spending each month, and then times that by 4, and then that becomes your emergency funding goal. And it protects you against a lot of these unforeseen surprises. And the most common ones are, if you or your spouse lose a job, if you have an unexpected medical expense, if all of a sudden you get an unexpected tax bill, household expenses like storms, floods, the roof goes, the furnace goes. You could have major car repairs. You could have an increase in childcare expenses, or there's a family member that has an emergency that need your financial support. Without an adequate cash reserve, these big life events could set you back financially 1 year, 5 years, or worse. It could force you into bankruptcy or force you to have to move your family or sell your house. By having that financial cushion in place, it insulates your overall financial plan from those events. The next question we'll get is, where do I hold my emergency fund? Do I just have to let it sit in cash? Can I invest it? A HELOC? And normally with most clients, we will advise them to just hold it in a plain vanilla savings account. And a lot of clients will push back and say, well, Mike, why would I have $30,000 or $40,000 just sitting in a savings account earning almost no interest? Wouldn't it be better to go try and get a higher rate of return on that money? And I remind our clients that the whole purpose of the emergency fund is so you can write a big check on the spot if you needed to because something unforeseen happened. If you had that money invested in an effort to achieve a higher rate of return, what if the investments are down that year and then you're forced to liquidate when the market's low? And if the market's low, maybe your emergency fund isn't even enough to meet that expense any longer. So there's more risk. So we kind of say, take away the risk, just hold it in cash, and that prevents you from having to go into debt, take 401k loans, and other adverse effects associated with these big expenses. Retirees will often ask us that once they're retired and they're no longer receiving a paycheck, should they increase the amount of their emergency fund since there's no more paychecks coming in? And in general, my guidance is no. As long as you have your 4 months worth of living expenses in cash, that is typically an adequate amount to deal with any surprise expenses that come up. There is a penalty for holding too much cash. So if you run your calculation and it's your emergency fund should be $30,000 and you're holding $100,000 in your savings account, that extra $70,000 could probably be working harder for you doing something different. Some of the more common options for your additional cash reserves are you could be paying down debt, including mortgages. You could be investing that excess cash in an effort to try and hedge inflation and achieve a higher long-term rate of return. You could be making contributions to retirement accounts to lower your income tax liability. You could be processing Roth conversions in retirement. You could be contributing to college savings accounts for your kids or grandchildren, or gifting strategies to your family members. Any number of these items may be better than just holding excess cash in savings accounts earning minimal interest. It's not uncommon for individuals and families to find it difficult to work towards that 4 months worth of savings and emergency fund. If you're living paycheck to paycheck, if you still have credit card debt and student loan debt and car loans, you may first have to look at strategies for paying down your debt, which will free up enough cash flow to then work towards that emergency fund goal. And one of the books that I highly recommend to people that are in debt are Dave Ramsey's book, Total Money Makeover. If you have specific financial goals, like I don't want to have to stress about money from month to month, or I want to retire by a certain age, or help my kids or grandkids pay for college, the odds of you achieving those financial goals increases dramatically by having an adequate cash reserve in place. If you have any questions on this, please feel free to contact me at moneysmartboard.com. Thank you.